Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Let's Play Storyteller. This is part 2, and we're going to continue where we left off. And if you notice a jump skip, it's Bandicam acting up. I don't know how to fix it. But that's mainly because there's no update at this time. So let's get started before it jump cuts again.
The manor. Beauty. The manor.
Hold on. Excuse me. So, when we last left off, we're about to do Chapter 6, The Manor.
Butler's rampage.
Okay, for this one, all you have to do is use this scene along with 2 bonus scenes. Then you place the butler here. He shoots the Duke and the Duchess.
Duke feels relief.
Okay, this is only one scene, so here's the solution to this puzzle. The butler takes the win, and then the Duke notices that it's missing, because it's his prized possession, I think. Then the butler puts it back, and then the Duke is happy that it's returned. Duke is happy. I don't know why.
Murderer is arrested.
Okay, so what you need to do is put these 2 ballroom scenes here, and one of the scenes that involves the weapon, and the remorse. So the butler takes the weapon, and what happened was he regrets his decision and ends up in jail. Well, technically he gets arrested by the detective.
Someone gets arrested.
Now for this one, someone is going to get arrested, which could be either the innocent or the murderer. So to do this, you have to, this is probably the trickiest puzzle. So what I do is that I go ahead and have the butler shoot the Duchess, place the weapon back, then the Duke touches it without noticing that the butler did it. Then the detective noticed there are fingerprints on it, and the fingerprints match the Duke's. And voila, he gets arrested. However, check this out. We have to get the murderer arrested, so what you do is that you remove the 2 scenes, then the butler will notice that the fingerprints belongs to the butler, and now the butler who actually did it gets arrested. There you have it. That's the solution to Chapter 6, The Manor.
Crown intrigue.
We're just Chapter 7. Let's go ahead and focus on this one.
4 deaths.
Now this one's a little bit tricky because there's only a cliff and a revive scene. So to do this, you have to cliff, revive, cliff, because you need to have 4 deaths. So the knight is going to be the one that gets killed by the Baron, but he gets revived, and now the Baron ends up getting killed by the knight because he cares about the crown in his head. Not in his head, but he cares about the crown in his thoughts. For some reason he gets revived, and then he ends killing the knight again. However, the knight, the spirit of the knight, ends up scaring him to death. And there you have it. That's the solution to this one.
The queen is rescued.
So what happened was that you have to have a wedding and 2 kidnap scenes. So the queen refused to marry the baron because she knows who he's capable of. However, the baron ends up kidnapping the queen, but the knight is rescued. And then here's the tricky part, because we need to have 2 stories, which is going to be different, but it's the same format. So the queen gets rescued by the knight. However, she ends up marrying the knight, and he becomes king. And then let's delete this part and have another kidnap scene where the baron gets kidnapped by the queen as some sort of revenge plot.
Everyone sits on the throne.
Now this one is a little bit tricky. So, for what I remember, I do this. Have the queen sit on the throne, and then the queen, for some reason, ends up getting killed by the baron. And then the knight ends up getting the crown, but he ends up getting killed, and that's the end of this story. Which is a very unfortunate story.
Usurper is forgiven.
Technically, it's all about forgiveness, so here's the solution to this whole. So the dog ends up locking the queen to the cage, and he becomes royalty. Then he decides to release her, but of course that is a big mistake because she locked the dog up for the crown. However, she's willing to forgive the dog because sometimes they don't know better. At least it ends in a very happy and a moral of the story lesson. Alright.
The queen marries.
Now this is where it gets tricky because the queen has to marry the baron, which she does not like. She does not like. However, there's a way to solve this solution. So here's the solution to this. So in this story, the queen is rejecting his proposal. So he decides to come up with a conniving plan to become king. He dresses up as a dragon and kidnaps the queen. Then he undisguises himself as the dragon and becomes himself, just to show that he rescued the dragon. And that's how they became husband and wife, also known as king and queen.
Secrets.
That's chapter 8.
Murderer gets arrested.
So the murderer gets arrested. So in order to do this, so the butler takes the weapon. Meanwhile, notice a secret passage and just looks at what's behind the painting or so forth, and witness a murder. And that's where the detective arrested the butler.
Butler gets fired.
Now this one's a bit tricky because there's no detective. So in order to do this, is this. So the butler takes the weapon, and the Duke is looking at the peephole behind the painting, and he noticed that his butler is stealing his weapon. He puts it back just to make sure he wasn't noticed. Unfortunately, he gets fired because he knows what he did.
Spouse gets vengeance.
Now this one's tricky because it involves the Duke, the Duchess, and the butler. So Well, it's not tricky, but you have to be mindful for it. So, the story is that the butler, the Duchess, is looking at the peephole of behind the painting. She noticed her husband getting killed. Then the butler puts the weapon back without anyone notice. Unfortunately, the Duchess decided to take revenge on that in her own way.
Duchess gets murderer arrested.
Alright, this one is the same solution, but instead of having the Duchess ending the butler, she decided to arrest him. And it will go like this. Butler took the weapon. She is an eyewitness of Duke meeting his demise. The butler placed the weapon back. Then the Duchess told the detective about the situation, and the detective is arresting the butler. Now here's where it gets a little bit tricky. A little bit tricky indeed. So now to make sure that the Duke isn't home. Gotta make sure that the Duke isn't home. Let's see. You have to make sure the Duke is not part of the story. This is the next scenario. But the Duchess gets shot, I believe. And there you go. That's what I remember, but I remember in a different way. No matter.
Justice.
Okay, this one is chapter 9.
Usurper dies.
Which means that... Now this one is the most difficult part of the puzzle because you have to make... Usurper die. Which I'm assuming it could be... Let's see here. I think I have the queen kidnapped, and he takes the throne. I don't know if this is going to work. And then I have the Baron be executed. And then the knight. Yes, the knight ends up capturing the Duke, and he's been crowned to the throne, but he's sad about it because he's thought about the queen, and he executes the Baron. I think in another way, you will have the queen being rescued by the knight. So, let me put it this way. Let me show you. So the queen gets rescued by the knight. Then what happens next is that the Baron is going to get captured. And this is a way for her to get the crown back, and then she executes the Baron. There we go.
Knight loses his head.
Ooh. That's not good. There's only 2 characters. So the way I see it, if I can think clearly, I'm going to do this. So the queen is on her throne, but she passed away. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. Never mind. I have to do it this way. So his beloved queen passed away, and now it's the crown. But little did he know that the queen has died, but he ends up getting captured by his love. Because the crown for her is more important than just, you know. And then she gets her throne back and executes the knight. A very unfortunate end. A very unfortunate end. Alright, so we're back. Sorry about that. I have to go to the restroom.
The execution.
Alright, so we have the execution, and this can go certain ways. So, what happened was... Let's see if I can remember. I don't know, this one. So, the storyline is this. The queen refused to marry the baron, as usual. So, she ends up getting kidnapped, but she suffers amnesia due to her imprisonment. So, the baron released her, and she ends up falling in love with him for some reason, and he gets the crown, not realizing that she met her demise. Now the next thing that we need to do is to focus on the baron, because the baron is suffering amnesia, regret of what he's done, and the queen is not happy, as you can see. And because of that, he gets executed.
Queen beheads all men.
Now this is where it gets tricky. So, what happened was... This is where it gets a little bit tricky, because... the queen has to be killed. And I think what's gonna happen was the knight gets the throne because he lost his beloved. But she gets revived and ends up getting married the knight because he's king. And then there's going to be 2 executions. One that is for the knight for stealing the crown, and the other is the baron for attempted murder. That is chapter 9.
Genesis.
That is chapter 10.
Eve rejects apple.
Okay, the way to do this is to have Adam eating the apple. And then Eve will witness what happens when you eat the apple. And that's where she's like, no, I can't eat this apple because the judgment person will electrocute me.
God is happy at everyone.
Okay, the way to do this is by doing this in the order. So what happened was Adam eats the apple. Then Eve will witness her love's execution. And that's where she's like, I'm not doing that. But Adam gets revived because Eve rejects the apple. And then Adam ends up rejecting the apple, leading to you-know-who very happy.
Adam watches his love die.
Now this puzzle right here is very tricky. But it starts off with Adam and Eve falling in love. And you have to have Eve eat the apple. And then you have to have this. And now this is where it becomes tricky, because he has to, you know, in order to be taught a lesson, he gets electrocuted. And then Eve eats the apple. He gets revived. And this is where it becomes a little bit tricky. This is where it becomes a little bit tricky. Remember how I completed that, you know? Oh. So you have to have him, you have to have the snake person to become Adam.
Friedrich takes revenge.
So Friedrich ends up falling in love with Eve. And the weirdest part is that he's fully clothed. Eve eats the apple, and he warns him not to eat the apple from the tempted tree, and shows what happens if he does. Now, unfortunately, he doesn't take that lightly. So here we go. Alright, there.
The King.
Okay, so the next chapter is chapter 11, which is called The King, but I'm gonna have to stop from here for now. So, let's go to settings. And I have played this from Daily Motion. You know, my other platform channel. And it was pretty fun. So that is it for part 2. So stay tuned for part 3.